Warning: All Things Crime is a true crime production that may contain violent or disturbing material. Viewer or listener discretion is advised. How have things changed over the course of you guys' careers in, when looking at DNA, or looking at evidence, do you look at things differently now? How have things changed?
For me, when I started processing, I mainly look for blood, or in sexual assault cases, semen. But now our technology is so sensitive that, like she said, we only need 2 cells. I do a lot of, especially in our agency, we have a lot of people run out of their shoes for some reason. It's very weird, or lose their hats, or leave gloves behind. And more recently, with the people wearing masks, they'll leave their mask behind.
We are trained to, how to look at the evidence and give our opinions and say a match or not. And then also we give statistics for, if we say a match, that's a positive association. We go ahead and give statistics that are completely unbiased. That's based on, population genetics with groups of people that are unknown to that everybody in the case, including us. So, just going in and stating the facts and then letting the jury decide, if that person's innocent or guilty, I think that makes everything fair.
Yeah, certainly. And it's interesting how many people, and statistically, it's not a huge number, but the number of people that are being freed because of DNA evidence that were convicted based on eyewitness testimony or something like that 20 years ago. Like, I just saw a guy on, I think it's America's Got Talent or something like that, who was in Louisiana, and he was imprisoned for 37 years on a crime that he didn't commit. And DNA ultimately freed him because, to me, DNA is not only the gold standard, but the reason it's a gold standard is kind of like what you were talking about, Nikki, is that it's so differentiating. You can have fingerprints that, especially if it's just a partial fingerprint, where it can be, I can't say easier, but it's easier to mistake that for somebody than it is for a DNA profile, at least in my opinion. And do you agree with that?
I don't know a whole lot about prints, but I do like the fact with DNA that we can give that. Right now we do likelihood ratios. We give a statistic. We can say, like, oh, it matches. Well, how well does it match? Do you expect 1,000 people to match? Do you expect, 80 quintillion people, to match? So I like that number where you can say, okay, I expect this to be seen once out of every 80 quintillion people. Okay, how many is that? There's 8 billion people in the world. Well, that's more than the population of the world. So everybody's like, wow, it really does match that person. So
yeah, so
I like that about DNA. But
how does that work? You can't say that this is 100% John Smith, that it's absolutely John Smith's DNA, but you're saying that it's like there's one chance in 8 billion that it's not John Smith, right? Isn't that how statistics work?
Yeah, so basically we're looking at alleles. It's just bits of your DNA. So like when I go on the stand, I talk about it like box cars on a train. Okay, at a certain location, and like I said, we look at like 24. At a certain location, I'm going to get 2, right? One from mom, one from dad. They come together. So I'm going to have 5 box cars and 10. She's going to have 2 box cars and 3 box cars. So our numbers look completely different. Now, what they've done is they've looked at thousands of people and say, okay, at this one location, how many times do we see 5 box cars? And how many times do we see 10, 2, and 3? And that's how, and they're like, okay, once out of every 2,000 people, we're going to see 5. So now you got this number. And as you go, each location, you're going to start multiplying those numbers. Like we've seen these box cars these many times your next location, times your next location. So at the end, you can say there's different statistics out there, random match probability, likelihood ratio, but basically like you can say, I'm 80 quintillion times more likely to be the source of this DNA than an unrelated person picked at random, is how we say it. And, basically we say, yeah, it's definitely a match. I would not expect anyone in the world and who's ever lived to ever be a match on that DNA. And it's based on science. It's based on how many times they saw thousands of people. And you can, apply that to the world, because we don't have everybody's DNA. So now you have to use population statistics to say, okay, how likely is it?
To me, that would be fairly, especially when you're talking those big numbers. I mean, if it's 1 in 1,000, that's a lot different, because I don't know how many thousands are in 8 billion, but it'd be a lot. So if you said, yeah, there's one person in 1,000 has this profile, you wouldn't have much confidence behind that, correct?
That would be less confident. Yeah, for sure.
Less confidence. Spoken like a true scientist. There's no absolutes in any science, right?
Right. That's right. But then you had to think, even if you get a number like 1,000, okay, you expect this profile, 1 in every 1,000 people to be included in that mixture. Let's say it's like degraded, or we don't have a lot there. They didn't touch it very much or long. But how many of those 1 out of every 1,000 people, how many had motive? How many were there near the scene of the crime at that time? So then you can like start narrowing it down again. So even if you do have like small numbers in DNA, it could be that, that helps the case get solved.
Right. And like we were saying earlier, all it is one more piece of evidence. It's just one more piece of the puzzle. It's never going to be the thing that convicts somebody. And I think that's really important that people understand. That is, the justice system is set up to be neutral. And that's why the prosecution has to have that, and beyond a reasonable doubt. And whereas the defense, it actually favors them, because all they have to do is instill that reasonable doubt, including based on that DNA profile that you guys are generating. But if there's no reason to really doubt that DNA evidence, and there's no reason to doubt that the person was there, and there's no reason to doubt that the person could have committed it and had, anyway, all these things get together, that's how somebody's convicted. It's not based on one particular eyewitness that supposedly saw it, that might be, how do we say it, scrupulous or unscrupulous. I got to get my English straight. But anyway, so let's go into maybe some cases that you guys have worked. And I know you can't, especially active cases, you can't talk about, the victim or anything like that. But when you're specifically talking about evidence, one of the things that lab people have talked to me, especially on the DNA side, is they get a piece of evidence in, and 10 years ago, they would look at it and they'd go, there's just absolutely no way we're going to get a DNA profile from that. Mm-hmm. How have things changed over the course of you guys' careers in, when looking at DNA, or looking at evidence, do you look at things differently now? How have things changed?
I mean, I think for me, when I started processing, I mainly look for blood, or in sexual assault cases, semen. But now our technology is so sensitive that, like she said, we only need 2 cells. I do a lot of, especially in our agency, we have a lot of people run out of their shoes for some reason. It's very weird, or lose their hats, or leave gloves behind. And more recently, with the people wearing masks, they'll leave their mask behind. So all I have to do now, I'm still looking for blood, or for sexual assault cases, semen. But if I don't see anything, I do a lot of scraping with blades and then swabbing them. and then cutting out the swabs. So I think the technology has come along where you only need a little bit. And especially for mask, I don't even have to scrape it. Usually I can just figure out where the mouth would be or the nose area would be, and I cut that area out. And we've had really good success with mask. And I even cut like around the ears where the little holders are around the ears. And we've gotten full profiles from mask and shoes. And I mean, I mainly, if you think about it, people wearing socks in their shoes. So I always scrape and swab the shoelaces because you don't think about tying your shoes. So we've gotten good profiles off of that too. But it's very weird. People always run out of their shoes. I do a lot of sandals and flip-flops. It's just weird.
Well, you know how hard it is to run in flip-flops.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, just take them off and keep going. So when I first started, it was mainly looking for blood and semen, but now I bring stuff in and just scrape and swab if I don't see anything. So, and when I first started, if we couldn't find blood, then we would ask for additional evidence or something like that. And now if they just bring in a hat with nothing on it, we usually get full profiles off of that.
So what would determine if you would go to the next level? Like, I'm sure your protocol states, you start with swabbing and then go to scraping and then cuttings and then eventually the MVAC, right?
Yeah, well, we only MVAC if they ask us to. So we do mainly MVACing on rocks. I've got actually 3 in the lab I need to do right now. So if
Well, get on it, what's the problem?
we're actually waiting on filters to come in.
So it's my fault. Oh crap. Okay.
We have 3 filters and we're saving them in case we have a rush case until we get the other filters in. But we don't really have a protocol of what to do next. I guess it's just my experience. We always scrape and swab items if we can. If we get like a vinyl glove in, a glove that we can't swab, we will just put some sterile water on it and then just swab the inside of the glove. Or if we get a condom in where we have to figure out what's the inside, what's the outside, I will just swab it. I don't scrape it. But we mainly do the MVACing on rocks, and we have done it on clothing if they want to see like touch DNA if someone has grabbed at the shirt or a pair of pants or something like that.
Any results you can share on that?
We have gotten full profiles off of like someone was robbed. I've MVAC'd the pocket area, like saying they went in their pockets to get change or money. We've gotten full profiles from that, from suspects. I don't know what happened at that point because once we're done with our stuff, we give it to the investigators. But we have gotten profiles that is not the victims in pants areas, like the pocket areas. Or if someone was sexually assaulted, they a lot of times want us to do around like the buttons where they may have pulled the pants down, or like the leg area. We've gotten requests before to do around the leg area where they may have pulled down the pants in a sexual assault. And I think we got full profile off that. Wasn't that your case? No, maybe not. It wasn't her case. It all runs together, but we have had success off that.
Yeah, we don't test for epithelial cells because a lot of times it's just not a lot of DNA there. So we just go straight and go to quant and see, okay, is there DNA there or not? And if there is, then we'll go ahead to the next steps, try to get a profile off of it. So we don't test. Some labs do. That's not us.
So Nikki, let's pretend that not everybody is a DNA analyst and knows what going to quant means. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, Ashleigh, she also does our quantitation step. That is just seeing how much DNA is there, if any. And what's neat is now we can see, they've changed the kits. We can see, okay, is there male DNA there? And we get male and total. So we can kind of see the ratio, male to female sexual assaults. If if it's a male suspect with a female and we see no DNA there for male, we don't go on. We don't continue on and try to attempt a DNA profile, because we know at that point we're not going to get any male profile.
So it just gives us a number of how much DNA is there. And it also helps them with doing dilutions, because you don't want to overload the instrument. Or if there's not enough there, then there's.
Yeah, we know we're not
stop.
going to get a good profile.
Yeah.
So, but basically we go on for the most part. If we see any DNA, we're just that sensitive now. We can get a pretty good profile if we get hardly anything there.
Awesome. So when you say you've used the MVAC on rocks, can you give any kind of, what was the scenario there?
So we actually had juveniles throw a rock at one of our deputies' cars, and it busted through the windshield. The rock went onto the back seat. The deputy collected it, and the juveniles actually ran into the woods, and we were able to get a full profile off of that. So it was actually one of our vehicles at the sheriff's department that they tried to vandalize.
And then I think we had a brick
Yeah.
that you MVAC'd. I got to put that in CODIS. It hasn't, that one, mine hasn't hit. But yeah, I got a good enough profile from the brick. I think that one, they were breaking into somebody's house.
Yeah.
Like grabbed the brick and threw it. So,
We get a lot of people here that think, they'll say it's a brick or a rock and it's actually concrete. It's part of the road, but we do get stuff off of it. People, I guess the criminals don't realize you leave lots of DNA behind when you're throwing a rock. So
we can't talk about the results, but she recently MVAC'd a 2x4.
Oh,
yeah, a piece of wood recently, and got results. So that was interesting.
Awesome. We love hearing that. So
also, we went to, well, not me and Nikki, another colleague, we went to a different agency. It was actually a cold case for them, and the house had not been touched since the murder. So the family closed it up. They contacted us and they wanted us to MVAC an area around the bed. There was a safe there. So when they went back years later, they noticed that the safe had been opened. So they wanted us to MVAC around the safe area. And it was neat just transporting the MVAC and seeing a house. It had been totally closed off for 13 years. There was still food sitting out. It was very weird. But we didn't get anything other than the victim in that case, but it was neat being asked to come process items from a different agency just because they had heard about us MVACing, and I liked it. It was neat. It was a really good experience. I've also have gone to another agency. A suspect put a victim in the trunk of a car. Well, they thought they did, and they had cleaned it with Clorox. So they wanted us to MVAC the back of a car to see if we could get anything, to see if the victim actually showed up. And we did find the victim in the back of that car while I'm using MVAC. So that was a good case too.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of agencies that will, and some agencies even have two MVACs. They have one that's specifically for the lab, and they have others that are more for the crime scene, taking them out to different areas. Because I know you guys, especially once you validate a piece of equipment, the last thing you want to do is take it out of the lab. But sometimes it's just necessary. But regardless, that's taken an MVAC to the crime scene. They don't use it there very often. They don't have to, but sometimes there's like blood on the side of a building, for example, or blood on a sidewalk that they just can't get up using swabbing. It just tears the swab up. And so then, they choose not to jackhammer up the side of the building, which is usually pretty smart. And so those are kind of ideal situations for the MVAC. But yeah, we don't want to turn this into an MVAC commercial, but at the same time, it's an integral part of DNA collection now. And so that's why I asked, usually agencies, they'll go to swabbing and scraping and cuttings first.
Mhm.
And then if those fail, they'll go to the MVAC, or like you said, if the detective specifically asks for MVAC sampling, then they'll go to that first. So
Yeah,
is that pretty much you guys' protocol?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Unless it's like a brick or
Yeah.
really big rock, and we're like, okay, we're just gonna MVAC it.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
don't need to ask them.
Yeah.
Just do
Or
it.
it's funny because a lot of times they'll put on the request vacuum. They'll just write vacuum. And I'm like, I know what that is, but they don't even put like MVAC or anything. They'll just write vacuum. So I think they're slightly confused, but
Yeah. Well, there's those old vacuums that they used for trace evidence,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
and hopefully that's not what they're talking about with DNA. But
I don't think so. They're pretty young, so they probably won't even know what that is.
yeah, you don't see those around very much, do you?
I've never seen one. I mean, I've seen it on the computer, but nothing in my personal life. So
Yeah. Well, trace evidence is so difficult anyway, and it doesn't hold up very well. So yeah, DNA is definitely a much better standard. So, all right, ladies. Well, any really cool cases that you're working on, or maybe I shouldn't say working on, any really cool other cases that you've had recently that may or may not have involved the MVAC, but just something that you guys are really proud of.
We just did some bones.
yeah, we've done some bones recently.
Quite a few.
Yeah, we've done just identifying human remains. They didn't know who the victim was, and we've identified
Yeah,
quite a
Quite
few.
a few. We had an unknown male in the lab for like years and years, and just updated our bone protocol. One of the DNA analysts read, I think in a magazine, where they used a new kind of bone protocol, and then we were like, well, let's just try it. Yeah, let's just get those bones back out, and had used like so many. They did. This wasn't my case, but and then the last one just worked. So there's a special area of CODIS for families who have they don't know where that person is, or they're pretty sure that they've died, but they don't know where they are. You put those family members in, mom, dad, children. I mean, you can put aunts and uncles. And in that same category, we have unknown people that we recover. It doesn't have to be bones, but just unknown dead people. So then those could match. You could get a familial match to the family, or if you've got their standard, that's better, like a toothbrush, hairbrush, if it's recent. So yeah, we got a little bit of a profile on one, and
Very
it's exciting.
shocked, yeah.
It's exciting because it's, otherwise you have no idea, because it's just like, I think this was a leg bone. It was just a leg bone. Somebody found out in the woods. So I have no idea who that person is.
We do know it's male though.
Yeah.
It's a man.
Yeah, found a man. So.
I've also gotten a huge king size comforter. This is a funny story. Laid it out on our processing bench to look for seminal fluid, and basically open it up, and there were chicken wings, bones laying in it. I guess the victim, it was the victim's bed sheet. They just sat there and were eating chicken bones and left them in the bed, and the investigators just collected it. And it kind of scared the mess out of me, because when I kind of pulled it up, the chicken bones went flying everywhere. So you see some weird stuff in evidence. I know that. It's always something different.
The number of stories that you guys can create or tell is just absolutely hysterical. Chicken bones flying all over the place. That's pretty funny.
It's always something different every day.
Yeah. Yeah. One of these days, I'm not sure I want to talk about it on this video cast, but the day I came out there to demo the MVAC to you guys, there was a rock out in the back. That were you there, Ashleigh?
Yes.
Oh, how many days did it take before your lab didn't smell bad anymore?
It was quite a few. Yeah, I don't know where that rock came from. That was not a good testing rock that we should have picked.
Well, it at least showed you that it was collecting it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep, it
Yeah.
sucked it all up. I know that.
Yeah, that was nasty. Okay, well, hey, we'll just keep that joke in between the three of us here. So
Okay.
maybe you can fill Nikki in on because you weren't around last time I was out there, were you, Nikki?
No,
All right. Well,
no, it doesn't sound.
She doesn't do
nice.
very well with smells.
I don't like bad smells. I mean, nobody likes a bad smell, but
yeah, well, good thing you're in the lab. It's pretty much a sterile environment in there, so you don't have to worry too much about smells. So, well, ladies, I absolutely appreciate you coming on and sharing some time with me. It's always good to talk to professionals that are actually in the field doing, the actual work that it helps to, help solve crimes. And that's, I don't know, Nikki, if Ashleigh has told you, but the whole purpose of this video and podcast is more to educate and help people understand the entire investigative process. There's tons of podcasts out there that they'll pick a specific case and drill down on it, and lots of people love that. But what I've found, and it doesn't really matter if you're in the US or anywhere else, most people in the general population really don't understand how much work goes into actually solving a case. And certainly the lab, and not just the DNA analysis, but the serology is such a critical step in that. And so I applaud both of you for being such an important cogs on the wheel, and for sharing your story today. So
thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I'll definitely let you guys know when I'm gonna get this edited and put up, and hopefully you can also, spread the word and go check out the video and the podcast. So, okay, guys,
all right.
Have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too. Talk to you later.